We've all heard those stories about corruption, right? Public money that's supposed to build something important, something vital, and it just vanishes. It can feel like this massive, unstoppable force. But what if the answer wasn't another top-down government committee? What if the solution was built from the ground up? Something with a real sense of ceremony, maybe even honor. Let's unpack how a powerful idea like this is actually being put into practice.
This quote, it really gets to the very heart of what we're digging into here. When the official systems that we're supposed to rely on, when they fail to protect people, something else has to happen. A different kind of leadership has to emerge. Regular people have to step up and become stewards, guardians of their own communities, their own futures. It's an idea that really sets the stage for a totally different approach to accountability.
Okay, so our story starts in the Philippines. It's a nation of islands, and for them, public infrastructure, especially stuff like flood control projects, it isn't some luxury, it's a total lifeline. But what happens when the very projects designed to keep communities safe don't actually exist at all? Yeah, the term for this is a ghost project, and it is every bit as spooky as it sounds. Just think about it for a second. You pay your taxes, that money is earmarked for a new flood dike to protect your town. The money gets spent, the paperwork is filed, but when you go look for it, there's nothing there. It's a complete phantom on the books. It's a really shameless form of corruption that leaves people completely exposed.
And to really get a sense of the sheer scale of this problem, look at this number, 421. That is how many major river basins there are in the Philippines. And every single one of them represents a huge network of communities, of farms, of families. So you can see how when a ghost project gets approved for any one of these places, the consequences aren't just financial, they're immediate, and they can be absolutely devastating.
So how does a government even begin to fight an invisible threat like this? Well, the official answer was to create a new agency with a very powerful-sounding name, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or the ICI. On paper, this thing is supposed to be the heavyweight champion brought in to solve the problem.
But here's where we need to make a really key distinction. The best way to think of the ICI is like a world-class detective, not a judge. Its whole job is to uncover the truth, right? To follow the money, find the fraud. But, and this is a big but, it doesn't actually have the power to prosecute anyone. It builds the case. It finds all the evidence. And then it has to hand it off to somebody else to take it to court.
And don't get me wrong, the ICI has some serious teeth. It can issue subpoenas, forcing people to show up and testify and hand over documents. It can ask for asset freezes on anyone it's investigating. It can hold its own official hearings. So this is not some powerless committee. It's designed to be an investigative machine that can really dig deep. But this brings us to the central puzzle of this whole story. With all this official power, is the ICI actually effective? Or is it operating at such a high altitude, so far away from the action, that it's just completely disconnected from the very people who are living with the consequences of this corruption every single day?
And that right there, that is the critical question. If your village is staring down another typhoon season because a dam that was promised was never actually built, does a super complex investigation happening in some boardroom hundreds of miles away really feel like justice? Or does it just feel like another symbolic gesture from the capital city?
This slide just captures that disconnect perfectly. On one side, you've got the world of the ICI in Manila. It's all about legal reports, subpoenas, court filings. And on the other side, you have the reality in the local community halls, the barangays. And that's a world of rising floodwaters, of broken promises, of just daily life. The real challenge here is figuring out how to build a bridge between these two worlds.
So, if that top-down view just isn't cutting it, what about building a bridge from the ground up? This is where a truly innovative, really fascinating idea comes into play, a proposal to connect the institutional power of the ICI directly to the people it's supposed to be serving.
So check this out. Here's the big idea. What if you could fuse the ICI's formal authority with the on-the-ground intelligence of the community itself? The proposal is to create these youth watchdog brigades. Basically, you empower young people to become the eyes and ears on the ground, feeding real-time, verified information straight to the commission.
And the blueprint for how this works is actually brilliantly simple. So, step 1. Young stewards use their phones to document problems, like, say, a construction site that's been abandoned, and they do it with geotagged photos. Step 2. That evidence gets reviewed and validated by respected community elders.
Step 3, once it's confirmed, it's sent straight to the ICI, and then to Step 4, and this part is so crucial, when the ICI gets a result, that win is reported back and celebrated in the community. It closes the loop.
But this is where the model goes from just being interesting to being truly revolutionary. It's not just about reporting facts. It's about transforming this civic duty into a kind of rite of passage. It's about turning the work of accountability into an honored role, not just another task you have to do. And they do this through a system of ranks and badges, where each one has its own symbol and its own deep ceremonial meaning. So a young person might start out as an observer, the eyes of vigilance. From there, they could progress to documenter, then defender, and finally transmitter, basically a sacred messenger connecting the community to the state. See, this isn't just about making a game out of it, it's about weaving this work into a culture of honor and legacy.
And that whole ceremonial aspect, it's really brought to life through oaths like this one. Just imagine a young person taking this pledge. It frames their role not just as a volunteer, but as someone who is entering into a covenant, a really solemn promise to their own community. It gives the work real weight, real meaning.
And as they move up, that commitment just gets deeper. A defender isn't just reporting issues anymore. They're taking on the responsibility of mentoring new apprentices and protecting the integrity of the whole system. This progression builds leadership, it builds purpose, and it builds this powerful sense of shared responsibility.
So we've walked through the problem of ghost projects, the real limits of a purely top-down solution, and this incredible model that fuses official power with grassroots stewardship, which brings us to a final, really provocative thought. You know, we often think about fighting corruption with laws and enforcement, but what if the missing piece is actually cultural? What if transforming accountability from just another bureaucratic task into an honored, solemn duty? What if that's the key to creating real, lasting change? It's a pretty powerful idea to think about.